Scano, Tsego, and good afternoon. I first would like to begin by introducing Nahnda Garlow, Chief Commissioner, as well as Kim Thomas, Legal Counsel of the Six Nations Cannabis Commission. It is with a good mind that we speak to you today. Yesterday in our community, we experienced what we were originally told would be a peaceful demonstration. As Haudenosaunee, we believe people have a right to come together to peacefully and respectfully express their opinions and thoughts on matters of public interest. And we still continue to respect members' freedom to do so. As a matter of fact, we welcome it. Our people's own police, the Six Nations Police Service, are to be commended for acting with professionalism in the service of the safety of all Six Nations members, and I would like to say nyawa to Chief Montour and to all of our men and women in Six Nations uniform. As council, we very much appreciate the strength of the diversity of thought that exists, and we always seek common ground. In both our diversity and in our common ground, there is unity. In 2018, the federal government passed legislation making cannabis legal in Canada. This legalization would have a significant impact on Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. Concerns were raised by the community about the impact this legislation would have on our people. Council has a responsibility to address these concerns and meet the needs of the health and safety of all of our people. In particular, we had to take steps to ensure our children are protected and that public safety is assured. With the wellness, safety, and security at the forefront of our minds, we realized that the best step we could take would be to set up Six Nations' own regulatory process that specifically meets the needs of our community first and foremost. We set about engaging with community members through ongoing dialogue, and we will continue to do so. Six Nations Council took a further step to depoliticize the cannabis issue and set it into the hands of our community members via the establishment of the arm's-length Six Nations Cannabis Commission. These community members are also in service to our community and fundamentally believe in the wellness, safety, and security of our entire community. Let me clearly state some facts of general interest. This new regulatory setup includes no taxes. There are no federal, provincial, or First Nations taxes. Any Six Nations members who want to remain involved in the cannabis sector can do so simply by abiding by these health and safety rules and regulations. Consultation with the public will continue in an open and ongoing manner. Council wants to hear from all members of the public. We all have a stake in the health, safety, and security of the community, and as we move forward with Six Nations' own regulatory process, we continue to welcome your feedback. We would like to thank all of our members who have already contributed with their insights, feedback, and assistance as we take the pioneering step to setting up our own community regulatory system. We thank our Six Nations Police for all they do to support and protect all of our people, and to the whole community for all that you do. Nyawa, thank you, and we will now hear from Chief Commissioner Nahnda Garlow.
In 2018, the Liberal government enacted the Cannabis Act after zero consultation with on-reserve leadership across Canada. The leaving out of First Nations from those discussions was a reckless act, leaving dangerous loopholes that resulted in organized crime targeting our First Nations communities, while at the same time preventing our First Nations communities from accessing safe, secure cannabis unless they agree to submit to federal and provincial taxation. Our commission was brought together to consult with people in the community to build the rules and regulations needed to keep our community safe. The Six Nations cannabis law prohibits anyone who's not a band member from setting up a cannabis business on the territory. It prevents the misuse of traditional language and symbols. It ensures the security of our people by harmonizing with federal and provincial standards on health and safety. First Nations governments across Canada are taking similar action, developing laws that regulate cannabis in their communities. Those regulations are building real nation-to-nation trade relationships that are not subject to federal and provincial taxation and ensures only safe, secure cannabis is being provided to First Nations communities. Our community requested that cannabis businesses financially give back in a measured and regulated way to fund initiatives in the community. A community contribution model has been established by our commission that will donate to initiatives as determined by our community. Six Nations cannabis industry participants are excited and ready to launch safe, licensed facilities, bringing hundreds of jobs and new educational opportunities for our people, contributing financially to those important community initiatives. We have published copies of the Six Nations cannabis law and the regulations to our website. Due to the pandemic, our ability to meet in public has been limited to virtual assemblies. Going forward, as the pandemic restrictions ease and we begin to return to our new normal, we will return to in-person meetings when it is safe to do so, to gather feedback on what members of our community want to do with that community contribution. I'll now turn it over to Kim Thomas, Legal Counsel for the Six Nations Cannabis Commission.
Nyawa Scano Swogwego. We are at a critical and exciting time in our history. In 2018, Canada enacted the Cannabis Act with no consultation with the people of Six Nations. In 2019, Six Nations of the Grand River decided to assert jurisdiction over the cannabis industry from seed to sale and enacted the Six Nations of the Grand River Cannabis Control Law. The Six Nations Cannabis Commission was then established to implement the law. A professional team of consultants, including myself, were retained in 2020 to begin additional community consultations to review and revise the law. Key themes that emerged from the community were concerns regarding health and safety, protection of the environment, avoiding a monopoly on the industry, testing, regulation, governance of the commission, accountability, and community contribution. We are grateful for the community feedback, which is reflected in the revisions to the law. Community members were clear that they did not agree with the concept of taxation, but that contributing back to the community was important and in keeping with our traditional values of sharing and caring for each other. The original law provided that license holders would have to remit 8% of gross cannabis sales. Based on community feedback, this was removed from the revised law. It was suggested that community contributions instead be controlled at the distribution level, and that the Commission have a central distribution unit where all products would be tested, stamped, and sold to retailers. The central distribution unit should set the price payable by retailers. Community contributions would then be managed at this point, not after the final sale. Thanks to community feedback, this is exactly how the revised law has been set up. The Commission will act as the wholesaler. This allows for better control over quality and allows community contributions to be collected through resale margins to dispensaries. There will be no federal, provincial, or First Nations tax applied to any cannabis products produced or sold on Six Nations territory. The community will directly benefit from the wholesale fees collected. All fees collected by the Commission in excess of its operational expenses will be directed towards Six Nations community initiatives as determined by the Commission in consultation with Council, the community, and other Six Nations funding agencies, as well as for legal defense. Community members want it to be included in deciding where and how the revenues are allocated. The requirement to engage with the community has been built into the revised law. Community members and business proponents were in favor of the Commission being an arm's-length body. The community expressed the importance of accountability and internal governance of the Commission. Community members expressed the importance of being able to maintain their political ideologies but still participate in the regulatory system to ensure quality and safety of all cannabis products. The law establishes the Commission as an arm's-length body. The Commission will make all of its own operational decisions, and licensing appeals will go to an independent arbitrator, not to Council. There was a general agreement from community members that there should be an application fee to help cover the costs for licensing, inspections, education, and training, and community initiatives such as a testing facility to help ensure community safety. Further, it was recognized that the ongoing licensing and compliance inspections will have a cost involved, and this should be covered by the businesses operating in the sector, as they will be benefiting from the new industry. Without any type of compliance, it will be too easy for the safety and quality guidelines to be ignored. The license fees for Phase 1 of the production application is $5,000, and for Phase 2 is $15,000. For a retail application, the fee is $5,000. Health and safety was one of the key concerns of the community. It was suggested that licensed producers should have to comply with the same production standards as federally licensed producers under Health Canada. By establishing this early, it would also ensure the ability to sell to other jurisdictions, including nation to nation, when ready. Also, it would be too difficult to bring production standards up after the fact. The law was drafted to require that producers meet the same production and testing standards as Health Canada producers, while allowing more liberal packaging and promotion. All retailers licensed by the Commission may only sell products that have a Commission stamp, which verifies that the product has been tested and is safe. It was also suggested by the community that education and training courses be provided to business owners prior to opening their businesses. Mandatory training for all employees working in the cannabis industry was recommended, similar to the training modules required for cannabis businesses off-reserve. This training will be required for employees working in the cannabis industry at Six Nations. The growth of a new regulated industry by Six Nations for Six Nations is a true celebration. It is consistent with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and more importantly, our inherent right to decide how best to meet the needs of our people. We must consider our path forward and the future of the faces coming beneath the ground. Nyawe, I will now turn it over to Chief Hill for closing comments.
In closing, let me say Nyawa once again to Kim and Nahnda and to Chief Montour and the Six Nations Police Service and to our entire community. We must come together with a good mind. We have a bigger fight to fight, and that is not with each other. So please, let us be kind to one another and come together as a collective for the overall benefit and unity of all of our people. Nyawa.